Welcome to the What's Up ABQ podcast. On the show today, it's all about the craft of writing. Lindsay and Lorenzo talk to a young local writer who has just published her first of hopefully many books.
If you ever have something that inspires you, you have to kind of take note of it right away before you forget, especially like in the middle of the night. If you're falling asleep, you're going to want to write it down, even if it wakes you up a little bit, because I promise you're going to want to probably try and implement that later on.
From how she got started to revealing the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into putting a story into action, this is What's Up ABQ.
Hey Albuquerque, this is Lindsay.
This is Lorenzo.
And this is What's Up ABQ. What's up Albuquerque, this is Lindsay.
And this is Lorenzo.
And today we have...
Hi, I'm Veronica Ford, also known as VS Ford.
So Veronica, we are talking to you today about something that is really dear to your heart, and it's actually, you're holding it in your hands. Tell us a little bit about your book.
So I actually started this writing with a friend, and we would just kind of trade sentences or paragraphs back and forth. And when I was getting into a fiction writing class when I started at CNM back in 2018, I think, I kind of just ran with it. I was like, oh, this is a really cool idea. And I actually used a prompt from another local author who was teaching the class, Maria de Blasi. And I was able to kind of explode from there. And so it was actually a prompt that started chapter 5. And then I wrote chapter 1. And then I wrote chapter 18, which is the last one. And then I wrote kind of everywhere in between. And then my friend from high school was like, oh, my stepdad is like an agent and he can get you, we can like talk about it. And unfortunately that didn't work out very well, but I was able to overcome the struggles that I had with like the pandemanium and everything like that, and like just personal struggles and stuff about publishing. And I was able to finally self-publish it on Amazon last year.
Nice.
In July 2021. Thank you so much.
Nice. So your book is called Time of Death. Tell us a little bit about the plot. Don't give anything away because I want people to buy it and I want them to read it on their own.
So you're holding the book right now.
I know.
Turn it over to the cover.
This is going to sound really weird. I love holding like actual books. I don't like audiobooks as much. I like physical books, and I'm holding this, and it's like a very sturdy book, and I like the whatever kind of like paper this is on the front cover. I'm
like a matte.
This is lovely.
It's a nice book. So I'm kind of admiring the artwork on the cover. Also, can I pause for a second? I'm
Sure.
sorry. I apologize for our listeners about the noise. We are at the Elvado Hotel / tap room, and there's a little bit of music, little ambience, but you're in this conversation with us, so welcome.
Yeah, this is where we're at.
Yeah, this is where we're at. So the cover art looks like it's two people. One's holding like a gun, the other one's holding a knife, right? So where did you get the art for your book?
So actually, I was able to commission my friend Sydney. Shout out to Symphony Sonata on Instagram, Symphony_Sonata. She did the cover art for this book. I was so nervous about it because I myself am an artist and I wanted to do the cover, but I knew that if I did it, every time I would look at my book, I would probably hate it and pick out all the flaws on the cover.
Like a true artist.
Yeah. And so I finally ended up being like, hey, I love your style. I would really appreciate if we could work together on this. And she has also agreed to do the covers for upcoming books 2 and 3.
Oh, nice.
So
okay,
I'm
so
very excited for those. But yeah, so my book is about 2 assassins living in New York City. They are, well, I'm not going to try and reveal too much, but they end up meeting at the very beginning, and we just kind of follow their story from there.
So how do you, and this is something I've always been curious about because I've never written a book, but how do you start with character development? Like, how did you decide, like, this is who this person is? Like, how did you, I don't want to say like birth your characters, that sounds really weird, but how did you create them as individuals? Like, what was your process like?
Well, okay, so on the like metaphor analogy of birthing your characters, Rena is a trauma baby.
Oh, there you go.
She definitely stems from a lot of personal issues that I have had, and writing this was very much a way for me to cope with a lot of those issues. So I was able to kind of find myself and figure out who she was, and I like to say that she is the person that I didn't turn out to be, which is funny because I have no knife skills. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very personal, and but it's also very fun. Like, I really love in capturing, like, so one of my favorite parts to write is the villain in the book, Luke, and he is just kind of this, not necessarily an outward villain. I like to compare him to Gus Fring. So he's very much.
That's a really good, very New Mexico analogy. I like that. We're actually watching Better Call Saul. Like, we started watching it finally for the first time, like, recently. What are we on, season 3 or something?
Something like that, season 3, yeah.
I love that analogy because he really isn't like an outward villain, but he is a very villainous villain.
Yeah. So Luke is actually, he owns his own company. He runs a real estate company in New York. And that's his cover as he, leads all of the assassins. He trains them all, and he kind of runs that business underneath his actual legitimate real estate business. And I picture him in my head looking like Oscar Isaac, but sounding and acting like Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Yeah. Yeah, and he's actually also from Albuquerque. That's one little slip that I put in there.
That's one of those things that I love about New Mexicans and New Mexican art and New Mexico writers. And I feel like we as a community, we tend to kind of like reference ourselves a lot because we know the potential here, and we know that like New Mexico is like a very obscure and strange place. If you've never been here, people are like, what's that like? So I think it's funny.
Really good English.
Yeah, right. Where is that on the map? Is that no, it's the state. It's like literally in between Arizona and Texas.
Yeah, we have people tell us all the time, like when we say we're from Albuquerque or New Mexico, like, oh, I've been to Arizona a couple times, like, not the same.
Not the same. Yeah, we lived in Oregon for a little bit, and every time we'd say New Mexico or like Albuquerque, they'd be like, oh yeah, Phoenix. We're like, nope.
That's like 6 hours away, but yes, sort of close.
It's a different place.
I just like how New Mexicans have, like, we have this little bit of pride that we like to slip into our work. We're like, in case you didn't know, we're just going to put it in there for you. Think about it, Albuquerque. Let it cross your mind.
We're like the middle child, I guess, of America. You know what I mean? Like there's like the baby, and then there's the big brother or whatever. We're just sort of like the forgotten place. So we need every little bit.
New York and California is the big sister and the little sister, and we're just kind of here like,
I'm here too. Look at me. Pay attention to me.
Yeah.
I have a film industry.
Wow, something I'm hoping I can get into.
I know, and it's funny because I'll tell people like, oh, that was filmed in New Mexico. Oh yeah, that was filmed in New Mexico, and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of things filmed in New Mexico, and then like it kind of blows their mind, and they have no idea until you tell them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're getting off track now. But I was gonna say the show that we're starting now is really cool. It's filmed in Las Vegas, the Amazon one.
Oh yeah,
nice.
What's it called?
Outer
Range. Yeah, so good. Anyways, sorry.
Special shout out to that.
Special shout out to New Mexico and all you working people here.
Yeah, the New Mexico film industry. Shout out.
I know, for real. So Luke is he's a villain. Mm-hmm. He's from Albuquerque.
That's our son's name, by the way.
It is our son. And I could see him being like a criminal mastermind someday. Hopefully it doesn't go that way, but you know.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. So tell us a little bit about how, without giving away too much, what kind of a villain is he? How does he become the villain? Do you see his transformation, or is he just kind of bad from the start?
He is definitely bad from the start, and we see in flashbacks in different chapters of this book exactly how big of an effect he has on the main character. Her name is Rena Sinclair, and she's the main character. She's one of the assassins in the story. She is pretty much the one who we're rooting for, basically. And then we can see the villainy in Luke in that he almost sabotages her constantly, but he supports her while doing so. So it's kind of like...
He's a backstabber.
He is. He's like a very abusive, like, family member kind of role.
It's like a frenemy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. We see him take advantage of her, but also kind of nurture her, and she has nobody else to turn to, and so we see her kind of embrace that, even though she knows that it's not a great, dynamic.
Sure.
She's like, okay, well, this is what I need, so I'll take it. This is where I get my money.
Well, I was just going to ask one more thing. So can you give us a quick rundown, again, without giving too much away, about the plot of the first book and kind of where you're heading in the second and third book?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't want to give too much away, I don't want to...
I think I can manage it. I think I can swing it. So Rena meets this other assassin named Ace, and as I said, they're kind of enemies at first, and then they end up being forced into working together, again by Luke, who knows that Rena is more of a solo player. He kind of forces them together, and due to, unforeseen circumstances, they end up having to, become this uncanny kind of team. And so we follow them into their evolving friendship and their like grudges against each other and stuff like that, and learning about, you know, each other's fighting styles, because as an assassin, of course, you need somebody to have your back.
Right.
And so we learn about their teamwork and stuff like that, and we see them go on cases together and start to learn more about each other as people and as assassins as well. And then we see Luke kind of truly emerge as the villain he is near the end, but not only more to the reader as opposed to the characters. And so we know kind of what he might start to be up to and what he wants to do with their skills. And we want to warn the characters, but there's no way to do that yet. So that's kind of what we're going to explore in book 2.
Nice. I like that. I love when writers take it to that level of like, you know, something that the main character doesn't know. And so you're just like hanging on to that thread of like, how are they going to find out? What are they going to do? And then you get so immersed into that storyline and you get so excited about what's going to happen next. That's actually, it's funny. We were talking about that show, that we started watching,
The Outer Range?
Outer Range, and I feel like that was some of the characters. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so invested. It's been 2 episodes, and I'm just like, what's going to happen now?
That's good.
So that's good writing for sure.
Nice. So before we started recording, we talked a little bit about how you found out about us and the interview, and it was Lindsay's brother Ryan, who is the co-host / he's still involved in the podcast whether he likes it or not.
From a distance.
Ryan, he's on our Instagram group, so he knows when we're like dropping recordings, and he's in the conversations. So shout out to Ryan. Ryan is also an author. But you got connected with him, I guess, through a community, right? Is there like a local like authors community in Albuquerque? Like, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So there's a few groups on Facebook that are writing groups, stuff like that. But I actually met Ryan through Coffee and Creatives group, Albuquerque, and he was just promoting his marketing, which he's very skilled at, and I'm definitely not. And so I kind of reached out to him and I was like, hey, you know, I can't really afford to pay for your services, but I would really appreciate any advice. And he was so wonderful. He was so great. He was like, I don't care about the money. We can just meet anytime, and I will kind of talk to me and we'll kind of figure out where you can go and what you can do. And he referred me to you guys, and so that's a little bit of exposure for me, which is great. Yeah. And this is super cool. I was very excited. Oh yeah. I've never done anything like this before, so this is very cool for me.
Welcome to Podcast Land. I know we hear that a lot. A lot of people be like, I've never done a podcast. We're like, well, today's your day.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hear a lot about this from Ryan because like it's my brother-in-law, and we talk, and one of our favorite spots, I know Ryan's favorite spot, and my favorite spot too, but I don't get to go there very often, but is Sidetrack Brewing. And a couple of the conversations we've had is just to like what it's like to write a book. And he talked about the writing community in St. Louis where he's at. And it's like a really tight-knit community from what he tells me. And like they do conferences, and they share work, and they say, hey, like this is a good artist for my cover art. Like, hey, you can kind of check this out as well.
Well, it's more collaborative. It sounds like it, like a community of help instead of just like, you know, everybody out for themselves. I think I like that a lot about the writing community.
And I think New Mexico is a very creative space already. Like we have famous art with like. Georgia O'Keeffe, and like all sorts of different mediums, and I consider writing for sure a form of art, and I don't know where I was going to go with that. Maybe it was the song that came up, but like.
Well, how do you ignore this song? I mean, it's at the height of the '90s right now.
Dancing a little bit.
I know. I was in the bathroom and they were playing music, and I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I just told you.
So what is the writing community like in Albuquerque? What have you found out? What have you learned about the writing community? And what would you tell another maybe aspiring author that's just starting out? Like if they're like, I have this idea, what do I do with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually done a lot of promotion with local business Tidal Wave Books, and
they're awesome.
They were able to host my first my book launch, my first author reading.
That thing where I came out and said, hey, I have a book.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was also able to promote like their small bookstore event, and it was really great. And they have a really nice community of authors there as well. And Jason Witter actually is another local author. He does great stuff. Very talented artist and writer. And he was able to kind of come with and share my promotion with me. So that brought a little bit of an audience as well, which was really fun. And he's a really cool guy. Yeah, I actually have met most of the authors that I know through CNM because they were my teachers. They were my professors. And then I started CNM in 2017 when I graduated high school. And I'm finishing my 8th associate's degree in psychology right now. And then I'll hopefully be moving on to UNM. But I'm still not sure what I want to do because my main goal is writing for a living.
Sure.
And so, yeah, just going to school and kind of meeting those people in that community was really awesome. Another friend that I have that I met while working at CNM, Shayla, she was like one of my main cheerleaders in getting this book done because I would often, in downtime in tutoring, work on my book and stuff like that. And she would always be bugging me, oh, let me read it. I want to read it. What you got now? Kind of thing.
Keeping you on track a little bit.
Exactly. And she was very, very much important in the development of that. So I think something every writer needs is a very strong support group because it's very hard to write a book. And, you know, I've read my first chapter so many times, I don't think I ever want to see it again. But, you know, you have that community of people, you have your ghost readers and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, yeah, I think you could change this, or it needs more of this, or something like that. And the people cheering you on is the best thing that you can have because it makes you feel like you're doing something worth doing. So often, every so often, I check on Amazon and I'll see a new review for my book and I'll cry a little bit inside because it makes me so happy to see people just enjoying my book and loving what I put out there, which is extra important because it's a very big piece of like who I am. And so I love that support.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because my brother always told me with his characters too, because I would ask him some of those questions like, do you feel personally like offended if somebody doesn't like something about your book or they tell you to change something? And he's like, well, yeah, you know, I put like a little piece of myself into every little chunk of my book. And so if somebody's like, you need to change that, it's like somebody telling you need to like change something about you. And you're like, no, I don't want to.
I think that's with any sort of art form, like even with podcasting, you can call it an art form if you want.
Putting yourself out there.
But you're exposing yourself. You're like very vulnerable to like the public and like any sort of criticism. I think it doesn't feel good, but
I know that like, especially for us, like with a podcast, I deal with like a little bit of like imposter syndrome. I'm like, I am not the expert on anything. Yeah. Like, why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say about this? But I think the best thing you can do is just have conversations with like-minded people. And that way, you know, you can kind of collaborate and you kind of come up with this artistic community together. And that's what's important. I think it's, you know, it's not just about me doing my art and you doing your art. It's like, okay, we're a community together.
So we're about halfway. So we're going to take a little break and we'll be right back.
If you want a new job, Goodwill has a free service to help you find it. Need to learn interview skills or create a resume? We offer free training too. And we have a huge network of employer partners across New Mexico, local companies that are hiring right now. Ready for a new job? Don't hesitate. A perfect job is waiting for you. And help to find it is free. Goodwill it.
Okay, we're back. So now I kind of want to talk about a little bit about the process of writing, which I respect a lot. For me, like I like to write too, but I'm not an author. Like I just like to write. You've
authored many journals.
I've authored many journals. I had a blog a long time ago, and I tried to do some like I tried to do some short stories for fun. Didn't really go anywhere other than just like in my blog or whatever. But like, what's your process like? Like how do you just have like an idea and it starts from there and then you build on it, or do you have like a whole outline, a skeleton? Like how does it work for you?
So, for example, I know every English nerd and writer and, you know, every kid who was gifted in English knows about the little arm of the beginning, the rising action, the exposition. I said that in the wrong order, but that's all right. I don't have to memorize it.
There's the internet for that, guys.
Exactly. But everybody knows about the little arm where you have the little mountain that climbs. It's your rising action, and then you get to the main. Bless you. And then you get to the main, the main action part. That was sort of planned out for me, meaning I did like 4 or 5 drafts on that kind of skeleton arm and then totally scrapped it. So for me, at least, personally, writing is just frustration. It's very, very annoying. And I have constantly debated giving up multiple times, even after it was published. And I feel a lot of frustration, especially due to time, because the first book I wrote in a little under 2 years, or a little over 2 years. The second one, I started while writing the first one, and I'm still not even halfway done. But, there was a pandemic that kind of threw everything off, and it definitely affected like my mental health and stuff like that, which makes it that much harder to write.
Sure.
Like if you're putting all your energy into just kind of getting awake every day, then you can't put your energy into controlling somebody else's life, pretty much. One of my favorite quotes about writing is from Stephen King, and he says, "A good author knows that they're a secretary, not God. They're just kind of recording what they see. They're not controlling it," which is, I love. I have it pinned up on my art wall. So yeah, my process is mostly about kind of figuring out who they are and how I can write what they're doing. Not about creating them or forcing them to do anything. It's more about they're telling me like, oh, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how you're going to write it, kind of thing like that. Like I said, it's very frustrating, but it's also very spur of the moment. So some things I can write 5 minutes on and then be completely done. And then I'll write like 3 words and spend 5 hours on like a paragraph the next day. And it's very hard. It's very all over the place for me personally. But then I have things like a random song that will spur a whole paragraph or like a whole scene or a whole chapter. And it's just very interesting, and you just kind of got to follow that gut feeling. So if you ever have something that inspires you, you have to kind of take note of it right away before you forget, especially like in the middle of the night. If you're falling asleep, you're going to want to write it down, even if it wakes you up a little bit, because I promise you're going to want to probably try and implement that later on, just because everything helps build it up what you're doing, and every little bit counts.
So talking about inspiration, is there a series or a certain author or something in culture that you kind of are inspired by that you're like, yeah, that they get it, or like this is kind of what I want to model what I'm doing after?
Right. So I think every author has some sort of icon, and like every gay person, I was obsessed with Greek mythology when I was in middle school and high school. And those are when Rick Riordan's books were coming out about the Percy Jackson series and exploring that mythology. And he's very inclusive in his books. He is absolutely amazing. On my first date with my husband, actually, we went to see him live. My mom got us tickets.
Oh, wow.
And it was incredible. It was very, very amazing. And I was very touched. And on the way back to my apartment, my now husband asked me, what was your favorite part? And I was like, well, that he supports everybody. Rick is extremely supportive. I say Rick like we're on a first name basis. I wish. Rick Riordan.
Rick, if you're listening.
Rick Riordan is very supportive of his audience, his fellow writers. He even has like a sponsored kind of deal where he will support indie authors like myself and publish them and get them off their feet. And it's very incredible what he does. Like I said, he's very inclusive in his own work. He has lots of representation of, all kinds of races, genders, sexualities, everything like that. And I, as a queer person myself, I take huge pride in that. And I couldn't ask for like a better idol to follow. He's pretty wonderful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that we're just now in a time where people are starting to be a little more like open with like their support and
Absolutely.
Giving their support and saying like, you know what, yeah, there's like LGBTQIA authors out there. Like, how can I support that? Because that is its own movement. I mean, it's in a bigger movement, but also like, how can we support that as a whole? Because those voices for such a long time have been suppressed.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have that representation and to have that openness and to say like, we want to support authors that are coming from all different places because those perspectives are all valuable.
Yeah, and you were saying too a little bit earlier about being discouraged and having that person in your corner telling you like, hey, you can do this, keep going, don't give up. And I think that is so important, like on a bigger scale too, like saying, hey, like you have people who are rooting for you, like you can do it. So I think that's really important.
For sure. So if somebody wants to buy your book, I know we talked a little bit off mic about this, but if they want to buy your book, how do they get their hands on it? What's the best way? And also, what's the best way to support you?
It's a great question. You can always buy it on Amazon if you search Time of Death V.S. Ford, Ford. And it'll pop up there. I'm working on getting a hardcover up on Amazon, but it is available in paperback and on Kindle. But you could also go to my personal website, which I'll, link to you guys and stuff like that. And you can send it to my Venmo and stuff. And I can also get like personalized copies out for people who want like signed personalized copies, like with inscriptions and stuff like that. It's always fun for me to kind of write, especially to people I know, and just have them appreciate, oh, my signature might be valuable one day.
Yeah, for sure.
And so what is your next plan as far as working in this community, writing? Do you have any big plans coming up for summer as far as promoting your book, or what's your next step?
Well, I am still struggling definitely with self-promotion because I also run an art page, a photography page.
You're not busy at all. I'm just kidding. She's like,
exactly. I've got so much free time. And the pandemic definitely has me struggling. Yeah. And so it's very hard to find extra spare time on top of school and stuff to kind of self-promote. And so I just have to run all of these different Instagram pages and stuff like that, which are also, up on my website. So as soon as we post the website here, you guys can go explore that. It'll be linked to my Etsy, which has like stickers for this book, art and stuff that I've done, all kinds of stuff.
So you had mentioned earlier that you had some connections with some local bookstores. Can people, if you're in Albuquerque, can they get your book at the bookstores there?
As far as I know, there are still copies available around town. I have a couple at Organic Books on Carlisle, as well as at Tidal Wave Books up on Wyoming. And then I believe that's it, but you can always pre-order from me, send me an email or message or something on Facebook or Instagram, and that way I can pre-order you a book and get it signed and stuff for you.
So if you had words of wisdom for anybody who is struggling right now. I mean, obviously, like, we're coming out of COVID, and I say coming out because I'm just never sure if we're totally done. I really hope we are, but we'll see. I know. I'm like, every time I say that, then there's like a spike, and I'm like, never mind. What would be some words of advice for kind of just keeping on and and to keep writing even when you don't feel like it?
So that's a great question. I actually have included an author's note on the inside cover of my book that I'll read if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
So it says, author's note. My dear reader, this book is full of different types of people and challenges. Some of it may be hard to read. Some of you may understand it deeply. Some of you may just enjoy the story. I hope all of the above is true and that I could give you something. It is a read you won't soon forget. In my goal in writing this was to ever have a message, it would be this. Do not give up. Even at your lowest low, there will be always something to fight for. It is yourself.
Ooh, I like that. Can I clap?
Yeah, that's really good.
That's really good. No, I really like that a lot.
Thank you.
That's really cool. I was actually looking at your cover art too, and I was like, ooh, I wonder if she could do a graphic novel. Like, that's where my brain went. I was like, that'd be so cool.
I've actually started, I've done a few comics with the characters in this book, but I've also started like an introductory comic for an intro to the character in the second book, which is really fun. I would love to do a graphic novel, and I think a collaboration would be fun. So any graphic novel artists or anything like that, just go ahead and reach out, and I'm down to listen.
There
Sweet.
you go. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this. I love this so much. I was going to say too, I just think it's so cool that you're like you're holding this piece of yourself in your hands and you're like, here, this is my gift to you, enjoy. And I can tell that it means a lot to you. And I think that anybody who's going to read it is going to really appreciate that and see it also. Mm-hmm. My last question was, what is the demographic as far as who you like age groups, like who should read?
That's a great question. There's a lot of cursing in it because I feel like, I curse a lot, but you can't also...
Real humans do that.
Yeah, and you can't also be like killing people for money and say, oh, heck, I missed kind of thing.
Yeah.
Realistically, organically, they're going to curse. Yeah. And then...
Oh, shoot. Oh, darn.
Yeah.
Gee, gosh darn, gee, Willie.
So this isn't for your fourth grader, right?
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on your parent, I'm not going to judge.
But yeah, definitely young adult. It is an action. It is a thriller. And yeah, it's definitely for people who are coming up in the world, kind of trying to figure out who they are. I feel like it's a little bit of a teaching moment as well, which is kind of cool for myself personally.
I have one more question. Sorry, I was just thinking about this. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the music.
Is this the most important question?
No, it's not.
Okay.
You can ask the most important question. I'll let you do the honors this time. So let's say your book gets made into a movie. Mm-hmm. Who plays your characters?
Oh,
Have you thought about this?
ma'am, Halsey, if you're listening, I immediately cast you as Rena Sinclair, no questions asked. There's a British actor who would face claim for Ace. His name is Francisco Lachowski.
I'm gonna have to.
And Oscar Isaac would be the face claim for Luke. And then there's a couple more characters who I do have face claims for as well. Bryan Cranston is indeed one of them.
Ooh, see, there it is.
Nice.
There it is. I like it. High five. Nice work. Approved.
So I will say that for those who aren't able to focus on reading as well, or those who struggle with reading either physically or like, an audiobook or something like that, I am trying to release an audiobook. I'm doing my best in trying to find a studio. I will be doing all of my own voice acting. So stay tuned for that if you are looking for a verbal alternative to that.
I love that. Like
Can't wait.
giving access to everybody. I love that. That's great.
I think that's really cool.
Right.
I know that, like, for me, I love reading physical books, but
me too.
I have 3 kids, and there's like no time to do like mental space. And if I have a book in my hand, they're like whacking it out of my hand. What are you doing? What is that? So it's nice to be able to kind of like listen and be like, okay,
Yeah.
there's another way to do this. I can still participate.
Yeah, and this is definitely not a book you can share with your kids.
Yeah, no. We have a 10-year-old named Luke, and he'd be all over this. Like, and I have to be like, not yet. Wait a few years. Not yet. So,
Yeah, we have to vet all the books that come to him. I mean, not that much.
not censor, but definitely
yeah.
make sure they're like age appropriate.
Definitely
Yeah.
start him on Percy Jackson.
Yeah, we did get a manga novel from his uncle and aunt that we had to set aside for a little bit just
Yeah.
because it was a little bit too mature.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, so keeping the legacy of Ryan Freeman alive.
Oh my God, he's not dead. He's just in Missouri.
I know, but like Missouri, okay.
He's dead to us.
That's true. Fair enough. Yeah, that's right.
He's in the show me state. So this is the most important question: red or green?
Green for sure.
And if you're going to go anywhere in town, and I hate that I have to say this every time, not a relative's house, where are you going to get the best chili?
Papa Felipe's.
Okay. Noted. And what do you order on the menu?
Oh, the green chili and cheese.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Noted. That's good. No, I like that. That's one we haven't heard for a while.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like
I haven't been there.
I have. It's been a little bit. But I have been there.
They also have really bomb French fries.
Now I'm on a French fry thing. I have to say this. I just have to do a quick shout out because I'm gonna forget if I don't, and I'm gonna sit there and it's gonna wake me up at night.
There you go.
Green chili cheese fries at Taco 10. Please go get them immediately. They are so good.
I'm still full from breakfast, but
know.
I might just make room for that
You should.
pretty soon.
You should. It's totally worth it. And they have churro fries, which I haven't tried yet, just because there's never any room after I eat my food to get like churro fries.
Can I just one more shout out?
Sure.
The tacos at Sister Bar. I haven't had in a long time, but like, holy crap, those are so good.
Holy crap. Is there anybody else that you want to shout out locally, businesses, people that have supported you in your journey? Anybody else that you want to kind of say hello to or shout out on the podcast?
Also, we need a website.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah. So I believe it's, let me pull it up real quick. I'm just going to talk at the mic while I pull it up. Okay. So my website is vsford1322.card.co/. So vsford1322.card. And that's card with 2 R's. And then you can find my Etsy, sales for my book, all kinds of good stuff there.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to link that too in the show notes. And then what about others in the community you want to shout?
I definitely want to say Jason Witter and Maria de Blasi, super, super helpful in, helping me kind of find my footing as an author and, supporting me throughout, all my friends and family, my partner, all kinds of good stuff. And special shout out to my friend, very close, Ariana. She's the one who started this whole thing with me, and I couldn't have done it without her.
I love that. Well, Albuquerque, thank you for listening. Happy Pride, by the way. I know it's been a while since we've actually recorded, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Pride to everybody out there. Everyone is valid and seen. We support everybody here, and pretty much 90% of the characters in my book are queer, so there you go.
Oh, wow.
So if you need a Pride read, this is it, guys. You don't have to keep looking. You can. We've already found it for for you.
Murder, knife wife, gay people. What more could you ask for?
Sounds like a good Pride read to me. I don't know. Sounds awesome.
100%.
100%. Well, thank you, Albuquerque, for listening, and stay tuned for another episode very soon.
All right, talk to you later.
On November 13th, 2021, around 11:30 p.m., at the intersection of Arenal Road and Tapio Boulevard Southwest, a small black four-door sedan hit and run 20-year-old Marcus Baca. The vehicle that struck Marcos should have heavy damage on the passenger's side rear door and fender, with possible scorch marks. If you know someone who has information about or witnessed the hit and run that killed Marcos, you could be eligible for a $7,500 reward. Please report any tips you may have to Crime Stoppers at 505-843-STOP or online at p3tips.com/531. You can remain anonymous. Thank you for your help. #Justice for Marcos. Thanks for listening to the What's Up ABQ podcast with Lindsay and Lorenzo. Every episode, we'll introduce you to places around the Duke City that we think you'll want to try out and tell your friends about. If you have an idea for a place that Lindsay and Lorenzo should feature, drop them a line on Instagram at ABQ What's Up. Whether it's a restaurant, a place to get suds, an upcoming event, or just a nifty little place that you came across, we want to hear about it. And if you have a business and want to get some extra attention in the podcast, get in touch with us about sponsorships. Leave us a review or comment on your favorite podcast platform. The podcast is edited and mastered by Paul Nixon at paulnixonvo.com. Until next time, thanks for listening and subscribing to What's Up ABQ.